your brilliant performance. I understand that David Seidler spent a great deal of time with Lionel Logue's son. Did you ever have the pleasure of meeting the son?
His grandson, I think.
Yes,
Mark, yes. He came on set on the day that we were shooting my performance of Caliban in front of my boys, one of whom would have been his father. It must have been crazy, but he came up to me between takes and just said, "Oh my gosh, this is so moving for me to be here," he said, because like my grandfather, my father, being played by an 11-year-old in the film, he used to play games with us like my grandfather did with my dad about Shakespeare and parlor games and whatever, and he said it was just so moving. It was nice because when you get a thumbs-up endorsement from the people whose lives you're starting to sort of semi-fictionalize in a way by making a 2-hour movie, it's very rich.
It must be fabulous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome to Santa Barbara, Geoffrey Rush. And I know,
I have to say this, I thought it was going to be like about 250 people. Hello, Santa Barbara!
it's a long way you flew, and we really appreciate it. You coming all this way, I know, on your day off from your show, from Diary of a Madman, and I know you're going back, and that's what I talked about in the intro. I mean, this is what you love to do at the theater. You still love it. Even though you could do movies endlessly. Why is that? Why do you go back to the theater so much?
It's what I did. I started when I was 20. This year I will celebrate 40 years of being an actor. My dream was to keep putting my profession on my tax form as actor. And it sort of happened because I did, in Australia in my teenage years, there wasn't a film industry. We literally shut down for about 4 decades, from the 30s to the 70s, and then we had this extraordinary rebirth in the 70s. So when I was at high school in the school drama club, we just never thought you could make a film. I remember in my senior year, Helen Mirren was making a film up on the Queensland coast. I think she was about 18 at the time, called Age of Consent, directed by the great English director Michael Powell, who I think was sort of banished to Australia because he made a film called Peeping Tom that he liked so much. And we were astonished that they were actually shooting a film where we lived. It just seemed unreal. So there's always been that, I suppose, a sense of resilience of thinking if I can keep doing it as a career, hopefully till I retire, whenever that might be. And then in my mid-40s, Shine became sort of, it just swung me onto a completely different career path. And I thought that would probably have a very limited life, because one of the first things I was offered, I think I was put into the too hard basket. One of the first films I was offered after Shine was to play Liberace, because it was another keyboard role.
I can see that.
I was going to create a new genre. Get the piano now. People come up to me now and say, "You were great in the piano." That you were great in The Shining.
Let me reverse. I heard you were discovered in a college play, totally nude, right? Now, how is that? How does that happen?
How do I put this into a context that doesn't end up on YouTube? No, I was lucky when I was at university doing a literature and arts degree. It was a very fertile, very active time on campus. And wow. Filthy minds have standing around. No, what happened was that at that stage in the late 60s, early 70s, pretty much every bit of theatre you went to see involved nudity. It was like, it was a given. And I happened to go out in this university review and said, it was a blackout sketch, 30 seconds. I said, you know, this is a student review, you're no doubt expecting someone to take their clothes off. I stripped very quickly and said, well, that's it, thank you, and went off. Fortunately, though, the director of the newly formed Queensland Theatre Company, which was the first professional company set up in Brisbane, was in the house that night. And he offered me a job, a 3-year contract, as a repertory player in that company, doing 8 shows a year for 3 years. And I always like to think that he saw that I had a great future in front of me.
Winning the Oscar like that soon in your, you know, your key film career must have been a mind trip too. Was that something you could ever have dreamed of?
Impossible to think about. But mind you, I probably spent about 6 or 7 months traveling with the film as it opened in Australia and went through numerous festivals there, Brisbane and Sydney and Melbourne, and then various openings in America, etc., etc. It's a long, sort of crazy haul, which I know Tom and Colin have been seriously holding the fort on the King's Speech, because I think I chose to do the play so I didn't have to do it.
You're missing the whole season, Geoffrey.
It's not an overnight sudden thing, because by the time you actually get to that ceremony, you've actually made some great friends, you know. It was a delicious year, because we were in the company socially on a regular basis with the Coen brothers, you know, because they were there with Fargo, and it was a very big independent year, which was also deeply satisfying, because we were up against Breaking the Waves and Sling Blade and The English Patient, and it just felt like there was a change in mood in Hollywood just at that specific point in time. So it was really enjoyable to be part of that.
It's so cool. And then they probably offered you Shine 2, Shine 3. Now, how did you break out? You made the decision, I'm not going to do this. You mentioned that before, you know, with the Liberace, but so you did Les Miserables, was that?
Look, I was very fortunate, because my agent said, Billy August wants to meet you about, he's doing a film of Les Miserables, and I said, gosh, what role? He said he wants to talk to you about playing Inspector Javert. So out of politeness, thinking this would be a meeting where I would say, I'm flattered, but thank you, I can't do that. And I did say to him, look, I've never played a cop on stage, let alone, you know, on film. I said, I've just never been into that territory. I don't know if I've got that in me. He said, Billy said, look, I've seen Shine. I think you're a very good actor, and I really want you to play this role. And then I suddenly thought, you know what? This is the testing time. And I'd done this in my theatre life once or twice, where I did my first Chekhov. I did mostly comedy roles. I thought that was my home turf. And then a very close collaborative director, who's directed me in Diary of a Madman 18 years ago, offered me Astrov in Uncle Vanya. And I had the best time, but I was sort of way out of my league. I'd never really gone down that path. And I figured again that this was the time to take a huge risk and enjoy the pleasure of taking on a challenge that where you could fall flat on your face. because it wouldn't really matter. I had a theatrical career to go back to. And I learned a lot about myself as a performer. And I had the great opportunity of working opposite Liam Neeson and Claire Danes. It was you know, I just remember standing on, that was my first day on an international film set, freezing in Prague, with a ridiculously big hat on. And I thought, what the hell?
Before we go on to our next portion, I want to thank you for talking to me here about all of this and sitting here and watching.
Please welcome Colin Firth.
I'm here to lick your back.
Let's see your 55
Girls don't carry cash. I owe you 55 cents. Geoffrey was with us for only 4 weeks of the 7-week shoot. And, you know, the word has somehow gone round that I was inconsolable when he departed, and I would like to use this opportunity to set the record straight on this matter. It's perfectly true that I had a moment of regret at the departure of a respected colleague, but there was nothing emotionally unstable about it. In fact, the day after, because Geoffrey had a theatre commitment in Australia, so he had to leave us. And the day after he abandoned us to his meaningless play in Australia, I strode onto the set with a huge smile on my face and the air of a man ready to work, brisk and efficient. And Tom Hooper, I saw him out the corner of my eye looking at me with an exasperatingly knowing look. And he said, I feel exactly the same way. And I calmly inquired whether he wanted to get onto the bloody scene. And we had a joyless morning. I strode back to my trailer and binged my Blu-ray copy of Quills. Let's see, it's fine. At that moment I saw a strange pair of underpants on the floor of my trailer, and next to it was an unfamiliar pair of socks and pantyhose, and they made a trail towards the bed at the end of the trailer. And then I noticed, to my horror, that there was somebody sleeping in the bed. The blankets were pulled up so that only a tuft of hair was visible, and I approached with trepidation, and I just peeled back the blanket, and I shrieked like a schoolgirl, because it was Geoffrey. Or rather, somebody had pasted Geoffrey's face onto a mannequin. So I found this effigy of Geoffrey in my trailer, and this was some clever clog's idea of grief counselling or something. Probably thought it would help. And so, never being one to let anything go to waste, I picked him up and I propped him up, sat him up on the opposite little dining table in the trailer. And you know, actually I have to say, he proved a remarkably effective therapist. Over the ensuing weeks, he wasn't quite as animated as I was used to. He was a good listener, and he was cheap. And he had quite a presence. He showed up in the Wembley Stadium crowd scenes. If you, when you get the DVD, you know, pause it, you'll see him. He was among the palace courtiers, and in a singularly unpleasant moment, I did find him in the cubicle of the men's room on the film set. then, of course, Helena Bonham Carter showed up, and we forgot all about him. If only it had been that easy. And Helena was utterly captivating, but she never quite believed it. And I think the words I heard from her most often were, "I know I'm not Geoffrey, but if I could have your full attention just for a moment." And one of the mantras I think I heard from almost everybody on the set was, after I told a particularly hilarious anecdote, where the end came, where the moment of laughter should have been. Instead, there was always a wistful silence when somebody said, "It's just not the same without Geoffrey, is it?" Now, we men don't tend to go around confessing our emotions and feelings for each other. Well, I don't, anyway. Because these things are personal and private, and so we don't like to do it unless there are thousands of people listening. And, so this is rather like being on Jerry Springer. Geoffrey, Colin is here because he has something to tell you. I may not want to hear it. I have great love and regard for this man, and he has spoiled me completely. All those extraordinary, the intellectual fire and the humanity and the vigor and aversion to cliche and all those tangential qualities and the constant search for truthfulness. Those things that you see in his work, you actually also get in his company. And you've just seen the impact that this man has on the screen. If you could just imagine being in front of that on a daily basis, it really is quite extraordinary. It's like watching close-up magic, except it's not like just watching, because you're engaged. He invites you to engage with it, so you are involved with that extraordinary sense of the unexpected and that mercurial intelligence. And before you know it, you're feeling a strange sensation in the back of your neck, and it's coming up through your toes, traveling up through your body, interfering with your upper abdominals, and coming out of your eyes, ears, nose, and larynx. And before you know it, you have raised your game, and you are doing things you did not think you were capable of. And he does all that, and then makes you howl with laughter in your spare time. So nobody should have all that, really, and then also get a prize. But that's what we're doing apparently. One of the greatest working experiences of my entire life, and work with this man at your peril. It's an addiction. It gives me the greatest pleasure to award Geoffrey with the Montecito Award.
Sorry, Colin. It's too long a story to go into about the It's a running gag between us. I don't know what to say. I mean, thank you, Santa Barbara. This is, normally when you you assume when your life is going to flash before you, as it has tonight, you expect to be in the path of an oncoming bus. But it's been overwhelming, the care of how those clips have been put together. Quite an interesting Rorschach ink blot test of what was chosen. Colin, I can't thank you enough. Look, it's almost becoming an embarrassment now of the public declarations of man love. You know, I mean, the film was an extraordinary experience. On one level, we do have some very noble and honest, great people from stuttering associations who are thanking us for the film, for the impact it's made. You know, we have to stop this because the same-sex marriage people are going to be calling us quite soon to represent their cause. I celebrate my 40th year in the industry at the end of this year. You don't really expect in your late 50s to encounter such extraordinarily deep friendships out of a working relationship. And I have to honestly say that that did happen in a very major way between Tom and Colin and myself, because the work never felt like work. It was rigorous, and I think we were relatively disciplined, but the amount of good humor and wit and silliness that went on in and around the work was so enjoyable, and I think ultimately leaks through the screen at certain points in the lower undercurrents of the characters. This award is so meaningful to me. I have been honored in my own country for a career achievement event. This is so special to be honored this way in California, in America, because this country embraced me so openly and so wholeheartedly 15 years ago, and has continued to do so, and provided many fine opportunities for me to test myself as an actor. It's watching some of those clips, and the focus that you've given me is just kind of daunting, but it's a great, it makes me feel good, because sometimes as an actor, and I read everything, I don't sort of ignore the critics or the blogs or whatever. Occasionally you do get a review that calls your work, it's like cured pig meat. I quite like that because it's better than hammy, you know. I admire the linguistic skill, but it hurts for an afternoon, and then you wrap up some pumpkin clippings. You know, and I'm used to being called that squishy-faced actor or whatever. To be honoured so honestly and sincerely by such a broad array of what I've done and have enjoyed doing, and I want to stick around for a little while. You know, this is a high point this weekend for the trajectory that the King's Speech has gone on. In terms of its peer group accolades and the beautiful response of audiences in Australia and the UK and here in the States. The fact that I'm reviving this play from 21 years ago, The Diary of a Madman, and going back to my favourite town, New York, where I had the great pleasure of working 2 years ago on Broadway. I don't think it will ever get better than this, to be in the company of Tom, Colin, Helena, to be here with Jane, my wife, my agent of 15 years, my publicist of 13 years. This is as good as it gets, but I want to stick around a little longer because and do more work. I just want to see, even be part of an era where we call a moratorium on the use of the word celebrity, I love being an actor. It's what I've always wanted to do. I love the heritage and the history, all 2,400 years of it in the Western world. And I think the obsession with the meaninglessness of certain aspects of celebrity life is kind of ruining us. So I thank you for
Don't go anywhere. We're going to take a look at one more clip, and then we have a little surprise. So, let's go to the screen and take a look at this clip from the King's speech.
Simple mechanics.
That's all we ask.
Oh, let's add a shilling to it. Forget about the blessed shilling!
Please welcome Roger Gerling.
It's unprecedented in the film festival history. We've never had an ensemble award, and Best Ensemble Award, and it's a great honor for me to have Helena Bonham Carter, Geoffrey, Colin Firth at the King's speech, and we want to honor them with the Best Ensemble of the Year. And who would be better to give them this award than the Directors Guild Award winner, Best Director, Tom Hooper.
Thank you. I must admit, after the roller coaster weekend I've had, it's incredibly relaxing to be presenting an award rather than sitting in the audience. And to be given the opportunity to present the Ensemble Award here is an incredible thrill. And I have to say, there's obviously something about the Santa Barbara Film Festival that's pretty astute, because as I'm sure you all know, they announced this quite a few days before the SAG gave us the ensemble last night, so I don't know what you know up in Santa Barbara, but you're clearly on the money. And I'm here to tell you, this film wasn't only about the love between one man and another man. And it wasn't only about bromance and the jealousy of an English queen. We were also joined by the most extraordinary cast, and I promise you that sitting in rehearsal room with this cast was like sitting with the most extraordinary array of British and Australian cinematic and theatrical history. To have Sir Derek Jacobi there, who after all played arguably television's most famous stammerer in I, Claudius, was a huge thrill. And Sir Derek actually warned Colin that he might find the stammer a little infectious, because after playing I, Claudius, it took him 7 or 8 months to get it out of his system, and that is exactly what happened to Colin. 4 weeks into the shoot, he went off to an award show for Single Man, and came back the next morning and said, "I won," and I said, "Fantastic." And he said, "And I stammered." And I said, "Fantastic." To be joined by Sir Michael Gambon, there's a lot of nights in our film, unlike 9/11. Michael was in the original repertory company of the National Theatre, chosen by Laurence Olivier when he was a young man, and spent a year listening to a radio headset smuggled into his suit of armour as he stood silently in a series of Shakespeare productions at the age of 25. But he's come a long way. He was also part of our ensemble. To have the great Claire Bloom, who was Charlie Chaplin's muse in Limelight, and was actually presented to Queen Mary, the very character she played when she was 19 years old, was extraordinary. And then to have Guy Pearce arrive on set, straight off the plane from Australia. And in rehearsal room, when we first read the play, he had nailed the 1930s accent so extraordinarily well that Colin came up to me afterwards and said, "Tom, Tom, Tom." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "He's doing it much better than I am." And I said, "I'm afraid you're right. You better pull your socks up." And then to reunite Colin with Jennifer Ely, with whom we had an on-screen passion. A few years ago, you might have heard of it, Pride and Prejudice. Timothy Spall, who I last worked with in Damned United, is part of my repertory company, as these three are now after the rest of their lives. And then the wonderful children we had in the cast. I mean, it was truly fantastic. So I'm honouring the whole cast tonight. I'm thrilled to present this award, and I'm absolutely delighted that we've got, in the end, the key three here.
You know, so much of because we're all so tired, it's very interesting, or it might not be interesting at all. But no, not yet. But you can. I'll give you the, you know. But the whole thing with the award thing, we're so, as everyone knows, as anybody in the business, they know that it's not necessarily that merit. It's not just merit in turning in a good performance. But it is a lot to do with timing and who you're up against. He's vanishing, isn't he? Jesus, come back here, I'm about to talk to you. Oh, he's got to fly. Jesus, I'll stop talking about him. I was going to say nice things about him. I was going to say that he should really have the Best Supporting Actress, you know, award. So, you know, if he would definitely beat Melissa Leo. So, this is really for, this is a Best Supporting, we're going to make this into Best Supporting Actress for Geoffrey.
Not enough for me, but thank you everybody. Safe travels, Geoffrey. I thought I would say something funny and brief, and I decided to cast that pleasure aside completely. Just to make it very long-winded. Just on our departing travellers' behalf, I would like to thank you all so much at Santa Barbara for this. It really has been a most wonderful evening, and Geoffrey sends his apologies to you all, because he has a very, very important play to do.